I just finished reading a great book, The Way of the Champion by Paul Rabil. Rabil? In this book, Paul talks a lot about what a champion mindset is through three stages: the amateur, the professional, and beyond the game. Breaking it down into these three sections, Paul talks about as you're ascending, trying to become a champion, being a professional, being at the peak, and maintaining that champion mindset, and then the beyond the game, going through the process of retiring or what you're going to do after you retire. Now, to make it clear, the way of the champion does not only apply to athletes, although he uses a lot of athlete examples throughout this book. To read from the introduction of this book, Paul says, "As we begin, let's remember that this path is not exclusive to the arena of sports. It's a philosophy that resonates through life's myriad challenges. Whether you're facing a lacrosse net, a boardroom, a classroom, or any endeavor that stirs your soul, the principles remain the same." With that said, it definitely applies to people who are more at least interested in sports or have a sports background and can really relate those challenges that they learned from sport and how to apply those as a champion mindset into whatever it is that they want to do next or into the sport that they're currently playing. Fun little tidbit, if you didn't notice yet, Bill Belichick, probably the greatest football coach ever, has written the foreword for this book. So well done, Paul, for getting that done. Now let's do a quick breakdown of these three sections: amateur, professional, and beyond the game, that Paul talks about, so you can get a better idea of what's inside. In the first section, amateur, we're introduced to the idea that amateur not only applies to sports, but into all fields, because the word amateur translates in Latin to amator, meaning lover of or enthusiast. So anything that you are a lover of or highly passionate for or interested in, you can technically be an amateur in that field. Within each of these three sections, there's probably 30 to 50, it seems like, subheadings that range from anywhere to 2 sentences to a couple pages. So you get a lot of bite-sized ideas that you can easily digest. So you could do it maybe as like a daily devotional where you read one or a few sections at a time, or like me and you just burn through the thing in 2 or 3 sittings and just try to absorb the whole idea of the book and the championship mindset that Paul's trying to describe. Okay, enough preamble. Let's get into it. Amateur. I've got 2 little sections that spoke most to me. And as you read, you might pick up on some things, either the ones that I picked out or some of the other ones that Paul goes over. Number 1 for amateur is cultivate range. So that is talking to the sport specificity, where people tend to have like a narrow focus on what they're doing and just get obsessed and spend 10, 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week on that one thing, which is amazing. And that's how you're going to develop your 10,000 hours of getting better at something. But don't forget to cultivate range along the way. Why this spoke to me is because I've had 11 years of being a personal trainer, and I got into kind of fitness and health probably when I got into like grade 12, I'd say. So 14 years now. And in those 14 years, I've done a couple bodybuilding competitions, I've done a powerlifting meet, I've run a couple half marathons, I've done mobility courses, yoga classes, kinesiology, rehab, physiotherapist classes. All of this is kind of cultivated range for me so that I have this unique set of skills and experiences that I can speak to, and they can all relate together instead of having this one focused mindset, this one kind of keyhole that I'm looking through. And it's great to become an expert in one field, whether it's like kinesiology, physiotherapy, bodybuilding. You want to lean on these experts because they have so much more time learning these things. But either those people need experts in other fields to lean on, or we ourselves can develop this well-rounded mindset by working on other things. And pros, a lot of pros. I was just listening to an interview with Bobby Wagner, football player, used to play for the Seattle Seahawks, amazing player. And in the off season, he's swimming, he's playing basketball, he's still working on his body and staying in performance shape. But it's not football all the time. He's a well-rounded athlete who's got a lot of experience that can speak to his profession and his sport. Number 2 from amateur, what do you want to do with this? At a point, it becomes time to ask the question, what do we want to do with this? What are you working so hard towards? Is it championships? Is it money? Is it fame and notoriety? Is it approval, understanding where you want to go and where you want your skills to take you? So if you're going to put 1,000 hours into practicing hockey and shooting and skating, you want to make it to the NHL or the Women's Professional Hockey League. But beyond that, where do you want it to take you? Do you want it to carry you through life? Can you at least develop a vision of 20 years from now, 30 years from now? And it doesn't need to be all consuming, but to develop that mindset and know where you want to go in the long term is definitely a step that a champion would take. Okay, on to professional. And as Paul says in the preamble of part 2, you have to profess yourself to your calling. You have to invest more of your time, more of your resources when you become a professional in whatever you're doing. So now it becomes more of a challenge to maintain that success and continue to stay at a high level and not get complacent and not fall off and not get distracted by what other people might be saying, because now you're going to have more eyes on you, which can definitely help you rise to a higher level, but could also tear you down a lot easier. So the 2 points that I took away from the section of professional, the first one is called Your First Date. So that talks about the mindset of a relationship where when you're on a first date, you're so excited by the person across the table from you and it's all new and it's exciting and you're probably going to put a lot of work in because you want it to go somewhere. And the idea of your first date is to not get complacent, continue to work hard and continually deny complacency. If you're in a relationship 5 years, 10 years, 25 years down the road, if you are 10 years, 20 years into your career, are you still treating it with that same excitement like you would a first date? Or are you kind of falling into this routine, this groove where you let things slide? You might not hold yourself and you might not hold other people to the same standard that you once did because that love of the game isn't there with you every single day. It helps to have other people around you that have that young excitement, but ultimately it is up to the champion to find that within themselves, to continue to work and draw upon something to get that passion. And secondly, this one really spoke to me: compete only with yourself. Whatever it may be that you put the hours into at work or the skills or the sport or the instrument or the art that you make, you will face a lot of challenges trying to compare yourself to other people. And that may have driven you at a point to get to the successful place that you are now. But it should be your goal to just be better than you were a week before or a year before or yesterday. Because when we can find that intrinsic drive to improve upon ourselves, that will be the motivator that stays with us the longest. The last section is called Beyond the Game. And I'm just going to read the quote that Paul threw in here from Muhammad Ali: "The man who views the world at 50 the same way he did at 20 has wasted 30 years of his life." This section, Beyond the Game, speaks to the idea of legacy and what you're going to leave for the people who come after you, how you're going to make that transition out of your profession into something else. So a couple things that I took away from this section. One was called Going For It. It's often scarier in our imaginations than in reality, so just go for it. This one really sticks with me. I can kind of talk into my head and overthink things a lot, and I find that can be a positive trait in some ways because it means that I'm not going to act so rashly and emotionally, but sometimes it backfires because if I was making a YouTube video like right now, how long was I thinking about it? Hesitant because I didn't have the right lighting or the script wasn't ready, when I just need to dive in and make it, and you just figure things out as you go. I think that's a great point to think about. Just go for it and try to learn on the fly. Second thing I took from this is your job is to make fast transitions. And this one I find really relates to me as a trainer. I might see 6, 7, 8, 9 people in a day, often back to back to back. And they all have very different situations that they're coming from. They just came from a busy day at work, life stresses, family things going on, financial, their body's breaking down, they got injured doing something that they love. Now they're not able to do that thing. You have to be able to absorb that and help them learn and recover and try to help them leave better than when they came in. That person leaves and then 30 seconds later, someone else is next to you and they've got a completely different set of problems or issues or life circumstances going on. To be able to make a fast transition, to compartmentalize and go from one to the next is an extremely valuable skill for me, and then for other things in life. If something good happens, to not sit in that moment for too long and let it go stale. If something bad happens, to not sit in that moment too long and just get depressed and fester and take away from the joys of life. There should be moments to enjoy and moments to reflect. The ability to make fast transitions in and out is a highly valuable skill. Okay, last one, because I had 3 from this last section beyond the game, is listen. And early on in my training career, listening I found was the most valuable thing that I could do. Partly because I'm introverted and I didn't really feel like I had much to say or didn't want to say anything. So I let other people talk. But when you do that, they're giving you information, either directly through what they're saying or indirectly by the way that they're saying it, or their body language, or how fast they're talking, or how slow they're talking, or how quiet they are. There's a lot that you can absorb and learn just by listening. And to me, listening also means listening to your own body and listening to your own experiences. So by doing things, doing a workout, going for a run, putting myself out in the world and seeing what happens, giving space to reflect and to listen to what happened, is my body screaming at me. The time to listen and to reflect is incredibly powerful and cannot be underestimated. So make time to listen, either to the people around you or to yourself, if you're not giving yourself that time. So that's my review, more so just a summary of my favorite parts, but my review is I loved it. I burned through it in like 2 or 3 sittings. It's a really easy read. Like I said, there's 2 sections right there, 1 page of each. You could break it down as like a daily read or just burn through it. I think it's just a great reminder of some things that we could be working on in life, and the examples, like Paul's talking to world tennis pros and football coaches and his previous coaches, reaching out and trying to find champions in the world and what helps them succeed. If anyway you're interested in a champion mindset or just self-improvement and are looking for something easy to dive into, I would highly recommend Way of the Champion.